Houday Nation, what's up? Jeff here. It's been a long month. The Bengals are 2-4. Joe Burrow is posting his latest outerwear from his Aloe company, wherever he has his clothes. Brian Callahan's been fired with the Tennessee Titans as we speak. He'll be back at Paycor before long. He's Zac Taylor's best friend. And Joe Flacco is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. Jake Browning turned into a pumpkin. Kudos to Joe Flacco for getting in here quickly and looking somewhat functional in a 27-18 loss to the Green Bay Packers yesterday to move the Bengals to 2-4 on the season. As we sit here on October 13th at 2 Eastern, I never thought that the Bengals would be in this spot. Certainly when your franchise goes down yet again for the third time in 6 years, it's a tough pill to swallow. And the Bengals, they tried the Jake Browning experience for probably a couple weeks too long, quite frankly. But with what he did in 2023, Zac Taylor wanted to see what they could do. But yesterday, the Bengals, again in the first half, it's pretty much 4 consecutive weeks that the first half is just an abysmal offensive performance. And they don't even look like an NFL team in the first half. Fortunately, yesterday in the second half, they did find some traction, and Flacco was able to get touchdowns to Tanner Hudson and Jamar Chase, who is just freaking unbelievable at the wide receiver position, right? He just continues to prove why he is probably the best one, if not 1A in the league, right up there with probably Justin Jefferson. So, where do the Bengals go from here? We could get in here. We can break down the analytics. We can get into PFF grades. We can talk all that. At the end of the day, the Bengals, and specifically Zac Taylor, are at an inflection point in his career. When Joe Burrow's been in the lineup, Zac Taylor's looked pretty darn good. Last year, the defense failed them, and, he let Lou Anarumo go for that, which, say what you want. Maybe it was the players, maybe it's him, maybe it's both. But at this point, Zac doesn't have anybody else to blame. I know the Burrow injury sucks, and I'm sure it sucks for him more than anybody outside of Joe Burrow. Because they were relying on him to carry this team. And as I've had a chance to watch the Bengals over the last 4 weeks, I'm pretty much convinced Joe Burrow might in fact be Superman, because this roster is deficient in so many areas. It's really hard to pinpoint where it's the worst. And they waited too long to make the move. I do give the organization credit for going out and getting Joe Flacco at, just a few years younger than myself, going out and getting him and, making this team look functional, but they waited probably too long to do that. And now they're sitting here at 2-4 at a 3-game stretch that, quite frankly, 4-game stretch, if you want to be honest, is Pittsburgh, the Jets, the Bears, and then at Pittsburgh, which they won there last year with Burrow, obviously. But let's just take this 3-game homestand before the bye week. These are all must-win games for Zac Taylor, not even the Bengals, right? The Bengals franchise, the Bengals organization is going to be around, right? They're not going anywhere. But Zac Taylor, it's not personal with me. It's really not. He's had some highs, some high highs, higher than any coach really in Bengals history to go to a Super Bowl and back it up with an AFC championship game right after that. But seeing what I've seen after that, it makes me think that just great players carry you to those heights. Some defensive players that you let go, did they carry you to those heights, right? The DJ Readers, the Jesse Bates of the world, we won't get into that. Obviously, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and, whatever. But Zac Taylor, talking straight to you, there's nobody else to blame in the building. Brian Callahan's gone and now has been fired by the Titans as we speak, right? As I said at the top. And, it's all on you. There's nobody else to blame in the building. Yes, it sucks that Burrow went down. I'm convinced that this injury that Joe Burrow has probably saved him from taking the blame of this team, because I just don't think it's good enough. And the blame also starts with Duke Tobin. For those that don't know, right, the de facto GM of, even though Mike Brown at 90 years old is still listed as the general manager, Duke Tobin has brought in this roster. Right. And whether it's the offensive line, the defensive line, the secondary, all the drama with, Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the contracts and even Burrow's contract for that matter a couple of years ago. It's just never been clean. And it's just always the way. I mean, it's why I named this podcast Jungle Theater. It's drama. It's always something with this team. There's never any consistency. It's always the same stuff. And where it comes down to with me and Zac Taylor is winning football games, right? I mean, Zac Taylor, by all accounts, is a great guy. Will give you the shirt off his back. Great family man, blah, 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 all that stuff. And that's great. And I have nothing personally against Zac Taylor when he's eventually fired as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, and he will be because every coach gets fired at some point. He's going to go on and do great things. I mean, I think we're the same age, right? So, he's going to be fine. He's going to land on his feet. He'll be a position coach or a coordinator, or heck, he might go back to Nebraska if Matt Rule goes to Penn State and the Nebraska football job is over. I wish he would, quite frankly. But this next, specifically Thursday Night Football, but the next 3 games are, if he wins these next 3 and they go into a bye at 5-4, which seems like an uphill climb, but when you look at the schedule, it's possible. But if you go out there on Thursday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're probably all-time most hated rival. Some people can say the Browns, but the Steelers probably because of the Browns moving and then coming back. So let's say the Steelers. Your biggest rival comes in. And if we see what we saw against Detroit, where you've got bags on the head, which I think is ridiculous. We've gone through way worse in Cincinnati than where we're at right now. But getting booed off the field, right? Not looking functional, not looking like a pro team on national TV, on Amazon on Thursday night with a whiteout crowd. If you're a real organization, you don't survive that. Now, on the other side of the coin, if they come out, they look great, they are functional, and they win, and they beat the Steelers, and they're on that mini bye with the Jets coming in, and then the Bears, right? Which I think the Bears and Bengals are probably a comparable team at this point. Those are all winnable, and to give you some hope. But if you go out Thursday night and you lay an egg, the season's over. You go to 2-5, it's over, right? I mean, you've already got an uphill climb, but I saw some things with Joe Flacco yesterday. I mean, the first half starting out, I was like, man, this looks just the same. But then I got to thinking, my son, I'm watching with my 7-year-old son. He's like, Flacco, you got to do something in this. I was like, he's calling the plays that the coach is sending in, which Zac Taylor is the play caller, right? And he ain't giving that up, which whatever, fine. We've asked for that for years. It still hasn't happened. But you start the game with a jet sweep to Chase they put you behind the sticks. Then you run the ball on 2nd and 13, thinking you're going to catch them. We can't run the ball on 3rd and 2, 2nd and 2, let alone 2nd and 13. And then, 3rd down play that goes nowhere, right? I think they had 1 yard in the first quarter. But then to turn it around and, right, Flacco start to get some rhythm. And, there's rumors that, or not even rumors, there's facts that Chase called the play that they checked down to on 4th down where he got the incredible touchdown catch. And, they made some plays, right, in the second half. And they were in it. It was a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. If they get a stop, Flacco gets the ball back down 6. You got a chance to win the ball game in Green Bay yesterday, which, I don't think any Bengals fan thought going in yesterday as, double digit underdogs that the Bengals were going to win against one of the better teams in the NFC, one of the better defenses in the NFC for that matter. And, they didn't, and they looked functional. I think enough to give you some hope that, Thursday night they're not going to get, as Jamar Chase called it, post-game raw dogged by the Steelers. But, it goes back to this inflection point with Taylor. Like, I'm done with him at this point. Again, it's not personal, but I watch a lot of NFL football. There's a lot of times where I watch a game and I'm like, we have, the best receiver in football, in my opinion. And even when Burrow was in there and, Chase Higgins is a great number 2, right? And every throw is contested. Like, they're never schemed open. It's rare that, there's somebody wide open. It's more of, Burrow and Chase playing hero ball and making a great play happen. But, scheme something up. It's never easy. I think it's Joe Goodberry always says that Burrow has to play football on, all Madden level or the hard level when, Mac Jones and as a backup quarterback in San Francisco is getting free and making passes, making it look easy. Baker Mayfield making it look easy, right? Everything looks hard in Cincinnati. So it looks back to me of Zac Taylor of like, what are you actually doing to put your offense in a position to win? You keep talking about this as your offense. You're the offensive coordinator as the head coach, the play caller, and it's not good enough. It's just simply not good enough, and you're not going to beat anybody worth a damn in the NFL. And I'm convinced with him as the head coach. Now, I hope I'm sitting here 3 weeks from now saying, man, what a turnaround they had. But let's look at it. Let's be honest, right? I mean, Joe Burrow's not walking through that door. And, I was sitting in Jacksonville at 2-0, or in Cincinnati after they beat Jacksonville at 2-0. And, 4 weeks later, they're 2-4. And, after that game against Jacksonville, you're thinking, oh, maybe Burrow's just got a sprained foot or something. He's going to come back in a week or two. And then you find out that, what we all know now is potentially a season-ending injury. To where we are now, I mean, you're at the bottom, right? I mean, like if the Bengals lose, 10 more games, like whatever, they're going to get a high draft pick and Taylor's going to be gone and all that. But you have an opportunity here to actually play some meaningful football. And as a Bengals fan, a lifetime Bengals fan, that means something to me. So Zac Taylor, like, you've got to make a change. You made changes, right? With all the position coaches that you fired, the defensive coordinators, the offensive line coaches, all these people you've let go. And you're still the long holdover, but you are unwilling to change. And, when Karen was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, she talked about Zac Taylor's horoscope and that he's a Taurus, I think, and he's resistant to change. Well, he's got to change. Something's got to change for him to keep his job. And I'm not one of these fans that sits around and just roots for the team to lose. They've got too much talent. How many years is Jamar Chase going to be playing at the top of his game? I mean, maybe 4 or 5 more. I don't want to waste that, right? Now, I know they're not going to win a Super Bowl, probably not going to win a division, probably not going to make the playoffs, right? But there's enough on this team to be able to do that offensively. And we'll talk about the defense in a minute, but I think Zac Taylor has to look long and hard about what they're doing offensively. And I mean, it's time to hand the reins over, the play calling over to Dan Pitcher, these slow starts. It's him. It's Taylor. It's not Chase. It's not Flacco. It's not Higgins. It's not the offensive line. It's Zac Taylor. Every game, it's starting off slow. And even when they had Burrow, kind of the same story, year over year over year. And it's time to change. So, Zac, if you want to keep your job, and maybe you don't, maybe you're getting fired. Your best friend just got fired in Nashville. You guys, I watched them side by side yesterday in the first half, and the Titans and Bengals look the same. And the Titans have nowhere near the offensive talent that the Bengals do. So, Brian Callahan's probably sipping a cocktail right now, headed to a beach somewhere to take some time off and earn his buyout that he's got from Tennessee. And like, good for him. Like we should all be so lucky to be a fired NFL head coach making millions and millions of dollars, but whatever. Like that's enough on Taylor for the minute. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. So the last couple weeks playing two of the better teams in the NFC, the Bengals have been in position defensively. They did enough. They've gotten off the field. They've gotten a key turnover. I think it was 14-3 at half against the Lions, and it was 10-3. Or 10-0 yesterday, something like that, against Green Bay. So they did enough. The offense couldn't do anything, but the defense did enough. And then in the second half, it flips. The offense is able to get a few things going, and the defense fails you. And, one of the things I took away yesterday was Logan Wilson was benched, right? He was the third linebacker, and when they'd go 5 defensive backs, Logan wasn't on the field. And, Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight Jr. are rookies. And, they played some good football in college, no doubt about that. I think going 2 rookies yesterday against that team, I don't know if that was the right decision, but I'll be interested to see what they do with Logan Wilson moving forward. I mean, if you're not going to play him, call the San Francisco 49ers. They need a linebacker. It sucks. Fred Warner, probably the best defensive player in football right now, out for the season with a gruesome injury. So maybe they'd be interested in Logan Wilson. Maybe they'd be interested in Trey Hendrickson right? Build up some of that draft capital for Duke Tobin to probably screw it up. But I think it all comes down to Thursday night. You win. If your defense can do enough against Aaron Rodgers, who's still competitive, still good, got the Steelers 4-1, but they're, the Steelers aren't, I don't think anybody's looking at them saying, wow, I don't think the Bills or the Colts or anybody like that are looking at them and say, man, I'm not sure I want to play Pittsburgh. They're good. They're always competitive, right, under Mike Tomlin. Never had a losing record. We've heard that story time and time again. But at the end of the day, defensively, they've done enough. They're not a good defense, right? I think there's holes all over the place. And, Trey Hendrickson goes out yesterday, and the defense looks like what you think it would look like without Trey Hendrickson. Now, news coming out of Cincinnati today is that the MRI was clean, and that we'll see if Trey can play on Thursday. My expectation is he will, because he's got a kicker in his contract that if he plays 60% of the snaps, he's going to get an extra $1 million. And I know Trey likes money, so he'll probably be out there, would be my guess, right? And maybe he made a business decision yesterday. I don't know. Maybe it was really hurting him. Not quite sure. Don't really care. But there's got, a Shamar Stewart's been out for 4 games. It's time to get back on the field, right? Like you were practicing this week and you didn't play. You got to go Thursday night. And maybe that was the target all along. I sure hope so. Myles Murphy, first-round pick at this point. I'm calling that a bust. No offense to him personally, but he's not getting it done. And Cam Sample is not good enough. Joseph Osai, he's on a 1-year deal. He's shown some life. He had a couple nice plays yesterday. And a couple nice plays against Detroit. So you've got enough. If you got Trey Hendrickson and Stewart and Osai, you got it. I mean, it's okay. In the interior, TJ Slayton, BJ Hill, I mean, they're average players at best. They're not going to start for a good team, but they're there. And then your linebackers we just talked about. But if you're going with the youth movement, then go for it. Trade Wilson. I mean, Logan Wilson's been a great player for the Bengals for a long time, but maybe it's time. Maybe he's a little long in the tooth. Maybe injuries have caught up to him, whatever. And then you go to the secondary. DJ Turner looked like a CB1, if you will, yesterday. And, on the other side, Cam Taylor-Britt looks like a inactive. Quite frankly, I would send a message. I'm sick of hearing Cam Taylor-Britt say he's got to do more and this and that and the other. But I make him inactive on Thursday Night Football and make him earn it, right? Marco Wilson's been inactive. I mean, he can't be any worse than Cam Taylor-Britt. Let's give him a shot. Let's give Josh Newton a shot. If you're going to go youth movement, let's go. Let's find out what you have. And in the safety room, I mean, Geno Stone made a couple nice plays yesterday, but I think, he's not going to be back next year. He's not going to be on this team next year. And then Jordan Battle, that's the guy that I'm really concerned about, is that he's shown some flashes. And then yesterday he looked like he's running in the sweatpants, as they say out there. It just didn't look good. He looked like Von Bell the second time around with the Bengals. So I don't know if it was just a bad game or maybe he's got an injury. I don't know. But really defensively, if you, let's count Trey Hendrickson in this. I mean, who you want right now on this team, right? DJ Turner, Dax Hill, Trey Hendrickson. Maybe the young linebackers you're willing to look at. Shamar Stewart, we haven't seen enough from him yet. But pretty much everybody else is replaceable. I think that's where it's heading. So I got to give Al Golden credit. I know he catches a lot of heat. He had the right call yesterday on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 there. And, Jordan Love gets free from Barrett Carter, and Jordan Battle should have brought him down to force a punt. And we don't get it done. We don't make the tackle. So it's just the same guys. It's a wonder. I think Mo Egger tweeted this. It's crazy to think that guys that were on a bad defense last year are back this year and the defense is still bad. I'm paraphrasing there. But that's where we're at. And then let's go to special teams. I mean, Ryan Rico, stop punting it through the end zone, man. Kick it out of bounds. Do something else. McPherson, 56-yarders seem to be more common in the NFL. You got to make them. Shout out to him for making a 67-yarder that they called a timeout on, which would have been a record. So that would have been nice. And, the special teams hasn't been great. I've seen enough with Charlie Jones back there returning kicks. I mean, it's 12, 15 yards every time and whatever. I know Jermaine Burton's been an ass and hard to deal with, but if I'm Zac Taylor, I'm putting him active and seeing what he's got. Another weapon because back the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Yossi Vosh, 3 drops yesterday. Can't happen. Give Tinsley a shot. We've seen what he can do. Like this, Zac Taylor, back to where I started this. This is all on you. It all falls on your shoulders right now. What are you going to do to save your job? Or do you even want to? Because I'm assuming if you bottom out and go 4-13, let's say, and not going to be people signing up to hire you, especially to be a head coach. You're not Nebraska. Again, you're going to have to work your way back up through it to get into that. And he's been a long way since success. You can't keep living off of 21 and 22. You can't do it. I'm sick of hearing about it. Yes, they were fun. That was fun times as a Bengal fan. I longed for those days to come back. And it starts with Burrow being healthy. But this is a message to Zac Taylor. You have a 3-game stretch or maybe a 1-game stretch, depending on how you look on Thursday Night Football, to save your season, to save your job. We can also talk about, like, what would the Bengals do? I've had people ask me, what's Zac Taylor's contract situation look like? He's got 1 year left. So usually with coaches, right, there's two ways you can go. You can extend, which I have a hard time seeing. I think if Zac Taylor gets extended at this point, like, there's some screws loose down at Paycor Stadium. So the other side of the coin is, a lame duck situation, which you did with Marvin Lewis, and that was a disaster, right? You either have to extend or you have to part ways. Now, the Bengals have never been a team that at least in my time, I think it's David Shula was the last person to get fired in season. I don't see them firing Zac Taylor midseason, especially with Burrow out. They can just blame that. But they've got to look inward and find out, like, where are we headed next? We already saw it with Burrow's frustration with Taylor on the sideline. I mean, Burrow's backed Taylor for a long time. But I think as he's looking at this from the outside a little bit, I hope he's seeing what we all see. And again, like, we're not there. I'm assuming they're very close. They've had a lot of great times together. There's some things there, but I can't imagine Joe Burrow wants to spend his 30s with Zac Taylor as his head coach. And that's where we're at. We're talking about Joe Burrow going to be in his 30s. December of next year, he turns 30. Like, we got to win. Like, there's not much time left. And I was with some friends this weekend, and they were talking about, you got to draft a quarterback. And I was like, I'm going down with the ship. You got 4 more years invested in Burrow. You got 4 more years invested in Jamar Chase. You got a clean house, top to bottom. Obviously, you know who your best players are and who they are not, and figure it out. You're going to have, if anything goes, if you lose one of these next 3 games, you got to sell off pieces before I think the trade deadline is like Tuesday, November 4th, something like that. So you would be through these next 3 games heading into the bye week with a pretty good idea of where you're headed. If you're 5-4, you win these next 3 games, you're not trading Trey Hendrickson or Logan Wilson. You lose any of these next 3, I think you got to start to sell off pieces and be realistic, and then start to look to the draft. So that was about a 23-minute diatribe. We've been a little inconsistent with the podcast here, but I'm committed to getting back on track, whether this ends up God forbid, a 2-15 season or, a 9-8 season where they get some things back on the tracks. But, I want to be here weekly. It's cathartic to talk. I'm actually off work today, so being able to do this in the middle of the day is nice. But Zac Taylor, you got to figure it out, man. This is not personal. And again, Bengals fans, don't make it personal with Taylor. It's about winning football games. It's not about who he is or is not as a person. It's about, are you winning football games or not? This is professional sports. Every professional team fires their coach at some point, and Zac Taylor will be no different. The Bengals organization is pretty loyal. So if I'm Zac Taylor, I'm looking at this saying, hey, if I can turn this around, win 7-8 games with Flacco, they might extend me. Like, they've been loyal to Marvin Lewis. They've been loyal to people you never thought. They're David Shula, for crying out loud, in the 90s. I mean, you never know where this is going to head. But I think that, if you lay an egg on Thursday Night Football, the organization would have to be pretty thick-skinned, and they are, to run Taylor back out there. Now, I fully expect the Bengals to be competitive on Thursday Night Football. I think you're going to see more of what you saw in the second half, and I just don't, the Steelers are a good football team. They're not great. You've just played. The Lions didn't look great last night, but I think the Lions and Packers are a rung above the Steelers, and I think that the Vikings game was just a cavalcade of errors. And, I saw Jake Browning getting loose yesterday. I was like, what's he getting loose for? Like, at this point, like, that guy's not coming back out there. So it's Joe Flacco, right? And I got to give a shout out to Joe Flacco. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to get in there and make calls 5 days into to be even being in Cincinnati when you play a game. And I think he did enough. He was good enough. He didn't turn the ball over. He checked it down when he needed to. And, he missed a couple throws. Of course he's going to miss a couple. The guy's been there, like what Jamar said, he's caught 12 passes in practice from Flacco. And, Jamar was sick. I mean, like the fact they didn't get beat 48-10 like they did at Minnesota it's a modern miracle. So here they are. But they got to go into Thursday night and have some edge, People are going to be juiced up. It's 8:15 kickoff, white Bengal. Like the fans want to see a win. Like, yeah, there's the dregs of the corners of the fan base that want them to lose and, all this stuff. It's like, what fun is that? I want to watch Jamar Chase and T. Higgins catch touchdown passes from Joe Flacco for the rest of the season. And maybe, just maybe, we're sitting here with a Christmas miracle of a team that's, 7-7, and Joe Burrow comes running out of the tunnel with Joe Flacco as his backup. And we have some hope around the holidays because that's the magical time of the year, right? That's when it could happen. So for me, show up Thursday night, guys. Let's tackle. Let's have a functional offense. Let's beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Zac Taylor, consider handing things off. You're not going to do it on a short week, but it's time, dude. It's time to hand the reins over to pitcher. Let him call the plays, and you can coach the football team. Then you can go and talk to all these guys. You're too busy running plays. You can't even spend any time with the defense. And I think Al Golden could probably use another set of hands, another set of eyes to say, hey, I'm seeing this, but you're so fixated on calling plays. Like, hand it over to the guy that's in the booth. Joe Burrow, I don't know if he's going to show up at the game, but that could add some juice to it. I'd love to see him in a suite, but I don't want him down on the sidelines in a scooter. So I'm sure they don't. But I'm interested to see, does Burrow show up? Is he there? I know he's been in the building a little bit, but, it's going to be interesting to see what the Bengals do over the – we're essentially 72 hours from a season-defining game. I didn't think in a million years they'd beat the Packers yesterday, and they didn't. I didn't think they'd be 2-4 at this point, even when Burrow went down at 2-0. I thought they'd find a way to win one of those games, and they just haven't done it. So now your backs are squarely against the wall, and it starts with the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you can't get up to play the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football in a whiteout, 70 degrees, perfect football weather, the crowd's going to be rocking, even though they probably hate Zac Taylor. Right? I don't hate him. I think he's a bad football coach, and I think he should go. But he's got an opportunity. He goes and wins that game. He's got 10 days off before the next game at home. There's going to be a little bit of buzz. Some things will quiet down. If he loses the Pittsburgh Steelers, the flame on that hot seat just gets turned up as hot as it's ever been. So at this point, it's a defining moment for the Bengals. I'm not going to sit here and make predictions. We can leave that to everybody else out there, but I just want to see the Bengals come out and play in front of a home crowd, give effort, and win, and give you some time to see if you can get some things back on track. Because look at the AFC, right? You've got the Bills and the Colts, and then everybody else, right? The Jags and the Broncos. Okay, they're not very good. We beat the Jags, for crying out loud. So the AFC, the Ravens are 1-5. And I'd love to get a Ravens fan on here and ask them what it feels like to lose your quarterback and half your defense and then, look like what you've looked like the last 2 weeks. Now, they're going to get Lamar back after a bye, but 1-5 is 1-5. And that's tough to come back from, especially when you got a ton of divisional road games still coming up. You got some tough games yet to play for Baltimore. So it's still there for you. It's all in front of you if you take care of business these next 3 weeks. Now, I'm not even going to look to the Jets and Bears. You got to prove it against the Steelers. But you know what? The Steelers came in last year on your home field and dog walked you. The defense couldn't have looked worse. So there's an opportunity, and hopefully some guys remember that. So we'll see. But we'll be back here to cover it. Jungle Theater Podcast. Follow us on all the social media platforms, primarily Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. We'd appreciate it. We'll be out there. We'll get Josh back in the saddle here soon. But we might have some special guests coming on. I might have to dip into the bags of I live in Indianapolis. I might have to get some Colts fans or some Bills fans, God forbid, on here. But I'd love to commiserate with some Ravens fans. Maybe I got to go search the internet for that. So at Jungle T Podcast on Twitter, at Jungle Theater everywhere else. Give us a look. Thanks for listening. Houday, let's go get a win on Thursday.